are live. Hey, everybody, and thank you very much for joining us for the 86th week of the Free Assange Online Vigil series. If you can, let us know in chat if you can see and hear us okay. Everything looks good on my end, but we are running this a little bit differently. Today we have myself, Andrew Smith, and co-host Misty Winston and Kendra Christensen joining us. Steve will be back on Tuesday. We have very special guest, Kathy Vogan. But before we get into that, I do want to run through the numbers with everybody. It is day 3,731 since the illegal and arbitrary detention of Julian Assange started. It is day 685 since the WikiLeaks founder was trafficked from the Ecuadorian embassy to Belmarsh prison following a $4.2 billion loan from the International Monetary Fund. We have 52 days since the January 6th refusal of bail for Julian after Judge Vanessa Baratzer ruled no extradition and ordered his release. It is day 1,355 of federal incarceration for whistleblower Reality Winner. Our two bright spots, we have Chelsea Manning with 348 days of freedom. She does, as always, stream on Twitch multiple times throughout the week. You can find her at XYChelsea87. And in the good news, but not the best news, we have 102 days in a halfway house for Jeremy Hammond. As always, halfway houses are not freedom, but it is better than being in an actual penitentiary. And Jeremy actually gets a very special highlight because he was the whistleblower that, well, the person that brought forward the information about the global intelligence files and the Stratfor leaks, which is anniversary today, which is why we have Kathy Vogan with us. So how are you doing today, Kathy?
I'm very well, thank you. A little bit tired because it's 5 a.m, and we streamed the show with that Deepa Driver organised with John Kiriakou, Laurie Love, and Sulet Dreyfus to commemorate the 9 years of global intelligence files, the Stratfor leaks. So that was an incredibly sordid story about an agency, Stratfor, that peddled information for clients. They had informers, a whole network of informers around the world, and they worked for some pretty nasty companies like Bhopal Chemical. They spied on the activists who were trying to, there was a lot of people killed and injured there, and there were compensation claims, and Stratfor were actually spying on the activists themselves to, I suppose, for the insurance companies to disadvantage them. No, a pretty unscrupulous, but absolutely fantastic show tonight. So I've been doing that, and I thought I'd just stay up because there's 2 more shows coming up. Kendra is involved with the Denver show, and we'll be, by hook or by crook, on Consortium News. We will be showing, we have shown the first one, and we will be showing Denver on Consortium News, and Sydney, which is actually one that I have organised. Kendra, I had prepared already to do a screen share and say a little bit about the Denver event.
Oh, please do. No, we're so excited. Yes.
Yeah, I prepared. I've done my homework. I've prepared a little bit of text, and let me just do the screen share now, so we can take a look at this application window. Yes, and share. And I'll just make that full screen. Okay, so just going to my other, oops, hang on a second. We don't know what to go to the second one yet. So in Denver, we have Press Freedom and Julian Assange with Ray McGovern, Deepa Driver, and Mo Elmazi. Ray McGovern is a member of Veterans Intelligence Professionals for Sanity. And they are all coming from the intelligence community. And Ray used to work for CIA. He was head of the Russia desk. And he used to he briefed 2 presidents on a daily basis. So he's very well informed man, Ray, and a great raconteur as well, full of full of jokes and very serious stories as well. So they say, learn why dozens of leading human rights and free press organizations are calling on the new Department of Justice to drop the charges against Julian Assange. They give us a quote from Freedom of the Press, ACLU, Amnesty International, and 20 additional signatories whose letter is published on Wise Up Action. Quote, the indictment of Mr. Assange threatens press freedom because of much of the conduct described in the indictment is conduct that journalists engage in routinely and that they must engage in order to do the work the public needs them to do. Journalists at major news publications regularly speak with sources, ask for clarification or more documentation, and receive and publish documents the government considers secret. In our view, such a precedent in this case could effectively criminalize these common journalistic practices. Well, yeah, don't we know that? It's going to be a terrible world if that happens, with people actually even afraid to verify information just in case it's known that they've got it.
It's already kind of happening, really. I mean, we've already seen
it. Absolutely. That's right. So I'll just pass on to the second event and then come back and talk a bit. So this is from Politics in the Pub, another one of those extravaganzas from Sydney. There's going to be a live audience in Sydney, and they will participate in Sydney's Politics in the Pub. We're kind of COVID free here, and we have these events again. So there's a whole stack of people down at the pub, but I'm not going to be there myself because I want a really healthy stream, and so I'm going to be doing it from the CN Live studios. Don't want anything to go wrong. So I called for this event, and these were the people who responded: Felicity Ruby, Scott Ludlum, Joe Lauria, Nigel Parry, and Doctors for Assange ×2. So Felicity Ruby, or Fleek as we call her, is the author and editor of A Secret Australia, which is a new book that was released about a month ago, I think, that is about what WikiLeaks published about Australia. And we hadn't really had a book that covered the Australian story like this one does. There was the WikiLeaks files that covered the whole world, but this one, A Secret Australia, is a revelation, has been a revelation for a lot of people down under. Now, Scott Ludlum, formerly Senator Scott Ludlum, who was an amazing advocate for Julian Assange, even went to Sweden to try and sort things out initially. And was at the initial magistrates court back in 2011, I believe, or maybe I think it was the end of 2010. So Scott, no, I think it is 2011 now. I'm correcting myself again. So Scott is one of the authors of A Secret Australia. It's a compilation of different pieces by different people. And Scott has 2 chapters, but his chapter is specifically about repression. So the Julian Assange case and Western political repression is the title. You all know Joe Lauria, and I'm going to wager that Joe is, well, I'll say that Joe is possibly going to give a surprising history of, this is what he's working on at the moment, a surprising history of the Espionage and Official Secrets Act.
Oh.
So I'm not going to tell you too much. He'll probably say a little bit about it. That may not be his main focus, but that's possibly what's in store from Joe. Nigel Parry. Let me tell you, I guess you guys don't know Nigel Parry. Do any of you know him?
I feel like I have heard the name, but I would love to hear more.
Okay. Nigel Parry is a journalist and a technical consultant who covered the lead up to the release of the unredacted cables, and was actually the first person to decrypt them and warn WikiLeaks. So his account at the time tallies with computer scientist Christian Grothoff's expert testimony in the September hearing. But it tells us more about who made the release possible, and it wasn't Assange. Parry will, yes, he's called Parry too. Parry will also comment on the recently released call between WikiLeaks and the Department of Justice in the interest of preventing or delaying the release of the unredacted cables, because they'd been taken out of the whole submissions box was taken when there was a split at WikiLeaks. And so, this was coming from the departed batch. That's what we learned in the trial, in the hearing. And also, Nigel will speak of the implications that the Assange case has for press freedom. So that's going to be quite good. But it's not the... probably not. I think I'm going to put the doctors in the middle. So the doctors for Assange, let me just go back and tell you, maybe I can just get out of this screen share now, because it's that's enough. Let's see, stop sharing. Just watching it at this. So when I called for speakers, I had a particular idea in mind of what needed to be said and done. So here it goes. Here was my spiel. In the light of the announcement that the Biden administration will appeal the UK's refusal to extradite on medical grounds, it is vitally important to discuss Julian Assange's health, but also to articulate the reasons for cross-appeal by the defence on other aspects of the judgment. According to the defence lawyer Edward Fitzgerald, both scenarios are possible in the High Court. And we've had a few people saying that this is just my aside, that it is a bloody good idea to do that, because if they lose, the defence lose the appeal on medical grounds, then they will have effectively lost on all the other points as well. So... And of course, it was all the other points that threatened everybody else, every other journalist and press freedom. So it is my guess that Julian is a driving force behind, intentions of a cross appeal. But it remains to be seen
Could
in what way to do that.
Real quick, there's some confusion around the whole idea of the cross appeal. Could you kind of explain that in like simpler terms, how that whole process works in relation to the case?
Well, there were certain aspects of Judge Baretz's ruling that, where she was accepting dual criminality between the Espionage Act and the Official Secrets Act. It's just verboten to even hold classified information. This is the new age. I mean, it's like these centuries of the First Amendment and European Convention on Human Rights, Article 10, in relation to freedom of speech, Article 19 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights as well, the right to seek, receive, and impart information across all frontiers. This is a fundamental human right. And then there's also freedom of movement and all that they didn't care much about in relation to Assange. But one of the other things that was really barring we thought initially was really barring the extradition was that it was a political offence. And the UK, in their extradition treaty, which was finally ratified in 2007, there is a bar on extradition for political offences, and the Espionage Act, espionage, sedition, if you like, it's supposed to be gone, but it isn't. These are, by their very nature, political offences. But what happened is that after the Troubles in Northern Ireland, the UK, that England was seeking to have people extradited from Ireland. I'm not quite sure if it was all of Ireland or maybe not just Northern Ireland, but whatever, or maybe just the South, because they're different jurisdictions. But the thing was that this bar that excluded political extradition was kind of removed from the Act. It was just left out of the Extradition Act. Now, they're both from 2003. But it was kind of just left like that to make it easier to extradite people in relation to terrorism, in actual terrorism. I am from Belfast. That's where I was born. That's where I grew up until the age of 16. I had my friend's older sister shot in the back of the head when she was buying nappies for her baby sister in a chemist shop. This is hit and run, people. Snipers everywhere. Another girl I went to school with just happened to be walking by a place and had her eye blown out and her leg. She lost her leg as well. So this is the kind of thing that that you know, the UK were interested in. Well, not having any kind of a blockage on getting these people to trial, right? And of course, there was a lot of people who were falsely accused as well. I'm not going to go into that in too much detail, but that's the reason that there is a discrepancy between the Extradition Act of 2003 and the US-UK Extradition Treaty, which is 2007. That's when it was finally ratified. Now, the defense argued on the political bar right back in February, but that it came to a head on that day when Judge Barreta said that she was going to be looking at the Act. And that's what she said in her ruling, that she had considered the Act and not the treaty, because the Act didn't say that it wasn't allowed. Now, there's been outcry from the British Parliament about that, which I think you've been talking about already, that that Barreta misunderstood the intentions of Parliament, but they were a bit slack in not keep putting those provisions back in later, further down the track. They should have introduced this amendment into the Extradition Act so there was coherency. Because, the treaty cannot, it's so illogical. Craig Murray has pointed this out. The treaty is what enables, it is the enabling treaty for extradition. And it can't be ratified until it is compliant and incorporated in every British law. So why is it that there is something in there that isn't in the law? So there you go. That's one of the things that the defense can cross appeal about, the question of it being a political offense, and there is some support for that. But you should look at Consortium News and Alexander McCourse's letter from London, the last one, where he goes into great detail about how the appeal and cross appeal may play out.
Yeah, that's actually, I'm glad that you kind of brought up that aspect of it, because I was thinking of it more along the lines of them trying to appeal it based on the fact that this is a massive threat to press freedom, the future of press freedom, because the judge basically ruled with everything the prosecution said in terms of the United States basically having, jurisdiction over the entire globe as far as journalism goes. And so I hadn't even thought of the aspect that we're talking about there, because there's so much nuance to this case, and there's so many different ways that they could choose to go at it. There's always like a new leaf to overturn, I guess. It's kind of crazy.
That's right. But the political aspect of the case seems to be the one at the top of the list, the one most likely to be appealable. Alexander didn't discuss the press freedom issue, but I mean, unfortunately, we do have a dual criminality. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong here, but that one seems like it's more difficult because you have this interdiction in the Espionage Act, and you've also got it in the Official Secrets Act, and both have their opposition law. You've got the First Amendment in America, you've got the European Convention on Human Rights. And people might ask, well, Britain have left the EU. So does that still apply, the European Convention on Human Rights? Yes, it does, because they didn't exit that. They didn't stop being signatories. And in fact, as Alex explains, the ECHR is and the court as well, is the law of the land. It is the superior law. It supersedes, it overrides any local laws in Britain. So that's where Julian could end up, I suppose. But
I think, Kathy, I'm wondering, remember Julian Assange had said, I think early on, I don't know if it was in a letter or not, but he had said, don't let me be sacrificed on the altar of Brexit. Do you think it had to do with this, human rights? Or do you think that's maybe what he was thinking about specifically, or we don't know, or just I don't know. I always kind of wondered about how that related to everything.
Yeah, I'm not sure. There were things going on at the time that he wanted to talk about, and he wanted to testify to the British Parliament about what had happened. During Brexit and Cambridge Analytica, Aggregate IQ, I should say, in the UK, which is actually, a filial of Cambridge Analytica. They're the same legal entity. They're both owned by Mercer. He owns the intellectual property. Julian wanted to say something in both cases, and days after he was gagged.
Wow.
So that was actually Slavoj Zizek talks about that extensively. That his theory is that it wasn't really Catalonia that was so much the problem, but what he wanted to testify to I think it was House Intelligence Committee. Is that right?
Yes, I think so. I think
Adam
you're right.
Schiff said to him, the only way we're going to talk to you is if you're behind bars. If you recall that. You got a rebuttal.
I don't think any of this is by accident. There's no question about that. And and to me, I know I try to say this all the time, but I can never really find the right words for it. But it really is just so much bigger than just Julian Assange. You know what I mean? Like yes, like his life and his well-being is worth fighting for, but this is, our governments have the ability to know literally everything about us. I mean, where we shop, who we hang out with, where our kids go to school, how much money we spend, where we spend, you know what I mean? Like they have complete control over all of our information, all of our lives, and there's no transparency for them. That was kind of WikiLeaks was sort of the balance of that a little bit. I mean, they have all of these Cambridge Analyticas and Stratfor and all these, shady companies, spying on us, and it's crazy. And then WikiLeaks was kind of the people's answer to that. Like, okay, well, now we're going to shine the light back on the government, and that's really a bigger piece of what's at stake here to me. It
reversed the panopticon, didn't it? It turned it right around.
A little bit, yeah.
Anyway,
they still have a lot of power, but
if I could just focus on with the how the first part is the appeal, I guess, and then there's the cross appeal. But in terms of the appeal itself, I think we're ready for it. Certainly in this discussion on March 2nd, we'll be talking a lot about that. So prosecutor Claire Dobbin began her preview of the upcoming appeal by saying to Judge Baraitser, quote, "Your judgment hangs by a single thread, a presumption that the accused would complete a suicide in a US prison. The judge's decision was largely influenced by the expert testimonies of neuropsychologist Professor Michael Kopelman and special administrative measures SAMS expert Maureen Baird. What made the thread so slim was Baraita's other presumptions that the words of the Assistant United States Attorney in the Eastern District Court of Virginia, Gordon Kromberg, and the Guardian journalists their words could be accepted as fact. That forensic evidence, such as delivered by Patrick Eller and Christian Grothoff, could be disregarded, and that the First Amendment and Article 10 of the European Convention on Human Rights could be crushed by establishing dual criminality between the Espionage and Official Secrets Act. Now, all of our guests will be, I've asked them to perform a dual purpose. We've got the doctors for Assange, two of the doctors for Assange, Thomas G. Schulze and Bill Hogan, who are probably the most, have appeared the most as spokespeople for the group, but they're both psychiatrists. And I particularly wanted psychiatrists because we're talking about mental health. So this is kind of what we've got planned. I'm not going to read too much about the others. So Doctors for Assange will address what we know of the prosecution's intended line of appeal as outlined by the prosecutor Claire Dobbin at the bail hearing on January 6th. Before being hushed by Baraitser, Dobbin delivers some important information. These are our live tweets from Consortium News. Ms. Dobbin is referring to the Turner test to determine if a prisoner is likely to commit suicide. She says, the key determinant, we will argue, is the conditions in place. We will argue the fourth test in Turner regarding the diagnosis. At that point, Baraitser interrupts, saying too much detail. And at that point, both Joe Lauria and I felt that this was a very awkward moment since Baraitser had cut Dobbin off mid-sentence to stop her from going on. But she continued, Ms. Dobbin, Mr. Assange's mental health is not as severe as the picture the mental health experts painted. So Dobbin is referring to the case of Turner versus the government of the USA in 2012. An explanation of the Turner test can be found on page 90 of Baraitser's January judgment. So the fourth test reads, the mental condition of the person must be such that it removes his capacity to resist the impulse to commit suicide. Otherwise, it will not be his mental condition, but his own voluntary act, which puts him at risk of dying. And if that is the case, there is no oppression in ordering extradition. So Dobbin said that Judge Baraitser had not applied the Turner test correctly.
Can you read that again? Because that's really dark.
Andrew, I was just thinking.
I'm sorry to.
Dark, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm sorry to jump in there, but that's a hell of a thing to be written in law.
So this is the Turner test to determine if a prisoner is likely to commit suicide. So the mental condition, and I think this is a pre-existing mental condition as much as anything else, but Julian fulfills that. The mental condition of the person must be such that it removes his capacity to resist the impulse to commit suicide. Otherwise, it will not be his mental condition, but his own voluntary act, which puts him at risk of dying. And if that is the case, there is no oppression in ordering extradition. That's the fourth Turner test. Now, Dobbin said that Judge Baraitser had not applied the Turner test correctly, that the bar of adequacy of measures in terms of prevention of suicide was set differently than the judge had interpreted. The psychiatrist and Crown witness, Nigel Blackwood, said in court that special administrative measures could be managed with the right medication. So, The prosecution's arguments are therefore likely to go like this. Either the right medication will alter Assange's mental state in a way that will sufficiently quieten his impulse to suicide, or he's not that ill, so point 4 doesn't apply and extradition may proceed. That's it. So we've got two splendid psychiatrists who are going to converse for 15 minutes about this. They're going to go right into the Turner test. And there's on that link, maybe I can paste that link to you.
We can, yeah, we can do it. We can put it in the chat, I'm sure.
Yes, you should all go and have a look at that. But this is just the link. It's the link to Barait's judgment. I suppose a lot of people have got that already. Do they?
I'm sure.
I think it's actually in our show description on YouTube right now.
Yeah, it might be.
What, from the 6th or from the 4th, I guess would be the question.
It's from the 6th, January 6th.
Okay.
So this
I'll find it and put it into chat again.
Oh, actually,
I just love all the doublespeak. I honestly love all the doublespeak because and it's all so vague and ridiculous. You know, it's kind of like when they were saying that he shouldn't be extradited because you know, American prisons are so oppressive, but then during the trial they were saying that American prisons are basically like, you know, a day camp with arts and crafts. And you know, it's just whatever happens to suit their narrative at that time. And it's so apparent and obvious and gross. Oh,
I'm really glad that you guys are focusing on that too. I think that we should definitely have Deepa mention that event for more information for sure at the end too. You know what I mean? Like, because I do, you know, Ray McGovern was talking about that last week as well, just that like, you know, the time is so critical for his health even now in the winter and with you know, putting everybody that does test for COVID on his ward and no, you know, exercise. I mean, all of these things, it really is. There are so
no
many
warm clothes. He has to
violations.
insulate his window with books. And that's all of this stuff. Like the fact that it's happening in broad daylight and nobody gives a shit is really troubling to me. I mean, obviously people give a shit. We're here talking about it, but you know what I mean? It's not like a widespread uproar over what's happening to this dude. Like, you know, it doesn't matter what you think of him or what, and I hate when people say that, but it is true. Like, it really doesn't matter. The fact that he was spied on while he was in the embassy and that his meetings with his lawyers were spied on, they had microphones in the women's bathroom. The fact that he is being charged for political offenses, the fact that he is being held really without any charge and he's already served his time for the bail stuff. And it's just like one thing after another that is just a massive attack on his human rights and like just like normal rule of law, what you would expect. Like, as a human being, you should be able to expect to have conversations with your lawyers about a court case without the opposition spying on you. And, you know, especially when you're, you know, a journalist who's going up against the world's largest superpower, that should be a given. Like, you should be able to have private conversations with your legal team and participate in your own defense. It's crazy that people it seemed to just be okay. I know a lot of people are just uninformed or misinformed, but it's just really frustrating. So much is fucked up about this case.
It really is. I think like too, that's one of the things we were thinking about in Denver, you know, for our thing is we're trying to reach out to a lot of local groups there and also address it kind of as an overview and some of the main smears so that we can even get to some of these things because it's been so damaging. People are so turned off just even in the sense of like, oh, well, we don't want it to be controversial or, you know, I mean, that kind of thing. And I really think that Doctors for Assange, you know, we're talking about, they've come out, I mean, a long time ago, along with Niels Meltzer on the psychological torture. So that combined with, yeah, I mean, does that not count for anything? You know, I mean, so.
Yeah. I think the elephant in the room is all of the damage that the incarceration actually does.
Yeah.
You know, someone on the last show said that, you know, the ADX and special administrative measures, but also, I mean, Pilger said that the conditions at Belmarsh are not much different, but they would drive any sane person, the sanest person, insane. Just the treatment, just the incarceration and isolation.
Well, that's another doublespeak thing that they did, because they were like, well, we can't extradite him, or, he's going to be thrown in this prison. That's oppressive to him. And, so she's going to rule against extradition based on his mental health. But then she denies him bail. And sis, how do you think he got that way? How do you think his mental health deteriorated to that point? It's because of what you've been doing to him. It's because of the last 2 years in Belmarsh. It's because of the last 10 years of illegal and arbitrary detention in whatever form it was taking, and the psychological torture and all of the other things that have gone along with it. You know what I mean? Like, it's this doublespeak. Well, we can't send him there because he'll commit suicide. But, the reason he is at the point where he is potentially at risk to commit suicide is because of the way you've treated him. So denying him bail makes no sense whatsoever.
It fascinates it. But the thing about Assange is that he has a medical history as well that goes way back beyond his generation even. There's a history of suicide in the family, and I don't want to go too much into Julian's personal history, but that is actually a very strong part of his case, that it's not just his present situation. It is his personality and his history, medical history, and his family's history as well, that reinforces the likelihood in the judge's eyes that you could. It is very true that if even if there was nothing wrong with you at all, though, I'm sure that being placed in SAMS, you would just be like an animal after a while.
Well, and I mean, again, I also don't want to go too much into his personal history, but he is also autistic, and the suicide rate for people with autism is elevated. It's like 3 times, the rate of a neurotypical. So, I mean, that's also something else. My daughter's autistic. And so that really gets at me. So, I mean, and I again, it's something I feel very weird about even talking about, because it feels gross to talk about his personal medical history. Like, that's really nobody's business. But at the same time, we need people to see him as a human being and give him his humanity back, and make people understand what he's dealing with. I think a lot of that's been stripped away from him. So it's this weird balancing act, I think, of making people understand, how critical his situation is without getting too deep into, like you said, his personal history. That's really nobody's business. His personal medical history shouldn't be, a news article, or it's a weird balance.
For three whole days.
Mm-hmm.
That's how important it was, because that was probably their best chance. So it was just he was dragged over the coals. It was the most humiliating experience you could imagine, and I think it was really terribly painful for Stella as well. But the thing is that it convinced the judge, right? She had to hear all this in order to understand, why it couldn't be done. But it's a bit of a worry. It is so dark, isn't it? As you said,
really is.
This idea of the mental condition must be such that you can't resist, because if you can resist, then you've chosen to do it. So there's no oppression in sending you.
Well, and what does that mean? You've chosen to do it, then that means you can't resist. Gosh damn it.
I know. It's that doublespeak shit. They want their cake and they want to eat it too. They want to talk out of both sides of their mouth. They want both. Facts don't matter. Reality doesn't matter. It's just, they say whatever benefits their position at that time. And you know what I mean? None of it is, it's all nonsensical. And it's just really frustrating that they can get away with it. It pisses me off. It really does.
Yeah, but I think that they can't, they won't accept just a mental condition that, you're having a bad day or something like that, or you've had a bad 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
But a mental condition is actually defined by the psychiatrist,
Mm-hmm.
the borderline autism,
Mm-hmm.
or Asperger's, if you like.
Mm-hmm.
And also the family, his own, his own history back in the early 90s is not good. I don't want to talk about it, but you know, it goes right back to generations before him as well.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Well, and I
it's
think too, it's also just
that's a
like,
condition. That's a condition.
Right. Well, and I think that like through these medical conditions that have been, diagnosed by medical professionals that, testified under oath, you can see just, I mean, honestly, how much more amazing is Julian Assange's character given all of that, and everything that he still did and released. I mean, still, I think people too, you don't have to go, I think some ways you don't have to, violate that privacy to still, see what's going on, understand that there was a ruling and the expert testimony, and also just that, everybody now has the experience of, into some sort of degree, being kind of locked down. Like, and I think like, no matter what your views are on that, that's not enjoyable. Imagine already the punishment that he's, the process of the, the punishment is the process is the punishment,
Yes,
in the embassy there. That was
absolutely.
already bad for his health. And then that full year of just basically being in room 101. I mean, I don't know how terrible that was when he didn't have the internet. So I'm glad you
Well,
guys are
the other
focusing on
thing
that.
was that, and this is something that Fidel Narvaez tells us, that the mission of UC Global was not only to spy, record everything and send it to the American friends. They had a second mission as well, and that was to smear him.
Mm.
And the story of the literal smearing of the walls with feces, that was one of their stories. And Fidel went through a number of stories where they had told complete lies or twisted something or exaggerated, but they had a second mission, and that was to, be the source for the bad press.
Yes. And I have told people before, if you go back and you look at the propaganda campaign, like the decade long, because this has been going on for a long time, against this one person, it's depressing and scary and infuriating, but it's also super fascinating because it's been very deliberate and very, methodical. And it's like they've been slow walking us kind of into accepting the treatment that he's getting now. And if you go back and you really look at like where it started and you kind of try to pick it apart and see the different smear campaigns that have come from, different angles, it's really kind of fascinating. And that's it, again, terrifying because they're really good at what they do. They've managed to destroy this one man's character. They've made him into like this caricature, a comic book villain sort of.
Mm-hmm.
And they've like I said earlier, they've kind of stripped away his humanity. People don't even think of him as a human being. He's just some hacker, or he's a Russian, or he, you know what I mean. It's they've managed to just completely strip away his humanhood and make him into this just not even like a caricature, really. I mean, that's really like the best descriptor for it. It's kind of fascinating.
Well, the
and
truth is
coming
coming
they
out.
spent so much time, money, and resources doing that to one person.
Well, they have it from every angle too. It's
Mhm.
not just the Swedish bullshit rape stuff. It's not just the he hurt people stuff. You also have he was a Mossad agent, right?
Mhm.
Like people trying
Or
to
he's
smear him.
anti-Semitic, or he's a CIA op, or
Right.
it's incredible.
And
All of
and
the
even to those people, I say, why should someone that you think is one of those agents, why should their court trial remove your ability to share classified information?
right.
Right.
Like, for as ridiculous as those accusations are, it's as easy to counter as everything else.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Even if all of those things are true, even if he is some Russian / and this is like an impossible thing, but Russian / CIA / Mossad / Israel, you know what I mean? Like he could be all of those things that they level at him. And that still doesn't change the fact that what's happening to him is setting a dangerous precedent for my rights moving forward. And that's, none of that other stuff matters. That's what I'm worried about mostly. I mean, again,
he's not charged for any of the other stuff. You know what I mean? He's charged for
Yeah.
journalism. Like, you can read it in the indictment, right? I mean, that's what's so, it's so insane. I was going to ask you too, Kathy, and also Misty and Andrew, do you remember the name of the MP that did speak out in Parliament recently?
Claire
Again,
Daly? She's
No,
no, not, it wasn't.
no, it's a man.
oh, the labor guy.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh,
I do think that is positive that we have some movement there saying, like, absolutely not. This is not how the act was meant to be interpreted. I was just wondering if you guys knew.
hold on. I'm looking up his name because that's bugging my brain. We just talked about this yesterday.
Yeah, I've got it copied and pasted into one of 100 notes here. Just trying to find it for you. Because I only
It's a race to see who finds it first, Kathy. It's a race.
I was thinking that would be good for all of us to, you know, make sure we amplify that, especially if that's the direction that the, you know, that the appeal has a really good chance of being successful.
Yeah, he still wasn't, like, his statement wasn't great. He's definitely not Team Assange, I would say is fair.
Okay.
But I think his point was there's no reason that he should be incarcerated. Let's see. It's really bugging me that I can't remember his name. I want to say it starts with a B.
Well, and I don't,
somebody
I don't
check the chat too, because somebody in the chat probably knows.
Are you talking about the Australian Labour leader?
No,
no, UK.
It's from UK.
I have so many things bookmarked. I don't know why I bothered.
I know. That's what I'm like trying like to shuffle through bookmarks right now. It's terrible. Oh, it's really hurting my brain though, legitimately. Because we just talked about this dude yesterday, and for whatever reason, I cannot remember his name.
Well, one other thing, Kathy, is I was wondering if you didn't Consortium News was recently censored, correct? I was wondering if you could talk about that a little bit.
But that was an interview with Greg Palast about voter suppression. And that is something that is an investigation that he's been doing for 20 years. And he has a vast archive of documentation, evidence that show his claims are true. That, you know, he actually confronted Governor Raffensperger. Is that how you say his name? Raffensperger from Georgia. About the removal of 198,000 voters' names from the electoral roll, people who were supposed to have moved, but they hadn't moved. And it was an incredibly large amount, both from the Black community and student community. There's a Black community in one place in Georgia, I think, and then student community elsewhere. But you know, this is not to be confused with what YouTube have banned since January 7th, I believe, and that is that you're not allowed to make claims that of voter fraud, massive voter fraud that would have overturned the result of the election, the American election. That's verboten, voter fraud. But yeah, our interview wasn't about that at all. It was there were some people at the beginning of Greg's film that were shouting about, you know, stop the steal and stuff. Some protesters, but he, you know, that's just a clip that he shows, and then somebody said that's ridiculous, and then he gets into the substance of his report, and we have published 2 or 3 interviews with Palast already on the same subject, and none of those have been taken down. And in fact, the film that we showed as part of the episode, so it started with that, and then we did the interview. That's still on his YouTube channel. That hasn't been taken down either. But we got a warning. So, you know, content removed for violating the community guidelines. The description of the category was spam, comma, deceptive practices, comma, or scam. So that was what Consortium News were accused of. They said to us, initially they said to us, you've never done this before, so this is just a warning. It's not going to affect your channel. And then the next thing, you know, I just basically discovered it a few hours before, for no reason. It said, if you do this again, you will get a community guidelines strike. Now, we didn't do it again. We didn't do anything. I just saw the thing, and Joe and I were both drafting an appeal. And then suddenly it turned into a strike for no apparent reason. And we were blocked from being able to upload or stream for a week.
That's amazing. And what I love is that the reasons they give you are always incredibly vague. They're not, they, like you said, it's like spam or deceptive practices or whatever. And Steve has had to deal with this too. He talked about something, what was he talking about? World Economic Forum or something. And they
of the World Economic
QAnon tag. Yeah, they gave him the QAnon tag. That's happened to him they didn't even talk about QAnon. But they still got that. And it's been happening a lot. And this, I don't think people recognize that this is like a level of censorship. I mean, this whole, you know, marking Lee Camp as Russian affiliated media or whatever, that's a form of censorship. I mean, that is, it's a way of manipulating people's, you know, thoughts on sources, and, you know, it's really nefarious, and they're really amping it up a lot. I mean, when they're starting to take down an interview with Greg Palast, you know,
he's been a journalist for most of his life, but, you know, for the BBC, for Rolling Stone, I think Wall Street Journal as well. I mean, he's absolutely mainstream. The other thing is that he's a Democrat, right? He's a Democrat. He wasn't claiming voter fraud.
Right. That speaks to what you were saying, that this is not about, you know, you can go towards one side and censor them first, but this is just about power and censoring everybody. You know, that's one of the things that, you know, why we always talk about that here. Like, look, like first they came for Assange, you know, you really mean it. And even with the major news outlets saying like, nobody is, you know, safe from this stuff. You know, I mean, who knows if you were just part of some dumb algorithm that has, I mean, I don't know. I always wonder about that. Like how involved are they with who they're censoring? Do you know what I mean? Like, is it, I don't know. That's, who knows?
Well, I think, everybody should be concerned for sure. I mean, we've seen it happens to like regular, everyday, average people all the time. People lose their Twitter accounts, or, you know, they have like a small YouTube and it gets taken down for whatever reason. And, you know, of course that's, in the grand scheme of thing, that's not like top, like we need to be concerned. To me, the most important thing is that it's basically an attack on anything outside of the establishment narrative. And that should freak everybody out. I mean, does anybody trust them to tell you the truth? Like, I mean, to me, that doesn't seem like a crazy thing to like be worried that they lie constantly. And now they want to control everything we're allowed to see, read, hear, know. That's
even take things down. I mean, voter suppression is something that is absolutely real. And it's been going on for many, many a long year. It's not about the 2020 election.
That's what I was trying to explain to people just in my daily life, that like it's not about Trump. Like, we just lived through 4 years of a completely fabricated Russiagate story. Then it got flipped on its head. We're told everything's absolutely perfect now. Don't ask questions. We just removed this guy from every aspect of the internet. And I'm like, what the fuck? Right?
I know.
Because what matters is 10 years from now, when my 8-year-old gets to cast her first vote in her first presidential election, if that counts. Because we all know that everything's bullshit right now. But it's if we can, in a decade from now, have achieved actual democracy through direct action.
Yes. Well, and that's the more doublespeak, Andrew, because they, you know, they want to censor QAnon and they want to censor Pizzagate, but why aren't they censoring MSNBC for 5 years of Russiagate? That's 100% a conspiracy theory bullshit non-story that they have been like hyperventilating about at the top of their lungs for 5 years for ratings. So why don't they lose their platform? Why don't they lose their monetization? Why don't they get taken down? I mean, why aren't there are Democrats right now trying to get like Fox News and OANN taken off the air? Why aren't they also worried about MSNBC and CNN, who lies us into war after war? It's this ridiculous doublespeak where it doesn't matter. They really don't care about misinformation or fake news or any of that stuff. They just want to be able to force feed you their version of the truth so that they can better control you. And
like their version of the debate. I think that's like a big thing that you see being fed, even when we were talking earlier about the propaganda around Assange, hero or villain, and then they have this like fake conversation going on about something that never even happened in Sweden being the deciding factor about that, totally not talking, about, oh, well, what about all of the, the biggest leak in history showing war crimes, I mean, all of these things, just, don't think about that. And then what happened? And then they circle on whatever the power decision is. Oh, villain. And then we keep, we go again and have some sort of like fake kind of debate, and then we settle there. And it just keeps getting worse and worse and less rights. And to now where we have open censorship and people that are saying, yeah, censor them.
Yeah. Like cheering it on.
So, Kathy, I did want to ask, though, because we're with the Global Intelligence File Strat4 Leaks anniversary.
Yeah.
We found out through those leaks, through the work of Jeremy Hammond, about the secret indictment that was over Julian and about the secret grand juries into WikiLeaks that were going on. Could you talk a little bit about that and kind of how that led us to what we're looking at today?
Well, actually, I think that the first time that we saw the indictment was in Andrew Fowler's 2011 documentary, Sex, Lies, and Julian Assange.
Oh, really?
Yes, that was his scoop. What could you be talking about?
There was I'll pull the article up. There was a conversation that got revealed in the Global Intelligence Files that basically was between.
Oh, yes, of course. There's Fred Burton, the CEO. Of course, there's that quote. We've got an indictment on Assange, but we didn't. They didn't show it, right?
Right.
So when it actually physically appeared was in that 2000 fantastic Sex, Lies, and Julian Assange by Andrew Fowler, who's also written a chapter in A Secret Australia. So then we actually got a photograph of it. So that's how long we saw the evidence in 2011. But yes, Stratford did say we have an indictment on Assange, and they said that the US could possibly call for the death penalty. And one of them said that he would make a nice bride in prison, that he would be eating cat food. I mean, these people were very, very crude, very vulgar.
Well, they're psychopaths.
No respect for anybody, not even their wealthy clients. Just on the subject of the ban. So Greg Pallas didn't know about it at first, but he found out this morning for us. So he's very angry. He's going to make a big stink about it, which is good. He's a mainstream journalist. And Ben Norton also put out a tweet about it, actually confirming that we had been reporting facts about photo suppression, but it's come under the umbrella of the other, it seems, or else it's somebody from the Republicans who didn't like what was being revealed about what happened in Georgia with Raffensperger. So that could be, the Democrats started this friggin' thing, and now it's coming back to bite them. You know what I mean? If the Republicans are saying, well, two can play at that game, you don't want people to report on voter fraud, well, we won't let you report on voter suppression. Could be that as well. Who knows? But it's kind of getting really bad when media is so fragile that on the click of a frigging button, no matter who does it, you just have to flag a video, and then they do this. They take it, they take a look at it. They said, but I imagine that there's some kind of speech recognition. Was there any other questions that you had about Stratfor or?
Not particularly. If there's anything you wanted to talk about, by all means. But
yeah,
we
or if
have
you
our...
would also like to go, I know you're very tired too.
Yeah.
So please feel free to bounce out anytime. I'm sure you're exhausted.
I'm really, really tired now. So
yes,
that's why I thought my concentration is lapsing a little bit here. So
that's okay. Yeah, that's fine. We will post links to all the events that we've been talking about so everybody can find them. But thanks for coming. I mean, I know you're like a beast. You just are in constant go mode. So thank you for taking the time to come and talk to us. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Same
All
here.
right.
Thank you. Looking forward to tomorrow.
Having you on the show. Bye-bye.
Bye, Kathy.
That was
Cool,
great.
that was
She's
Kathy
awesome.
Vogan.
Can you imagine?
Oh,
she's like been up all night, you guys. She hasn't been to bed yet. It's 5 o'clock in the morning. Well, probably like 6 o'clock in the morning there now. She hasn't been to bed yet. She has another show tomorrow with Kendra. What else? She has a lot.
The Australian show as well.
Yeah.
I think that's later today, technically, because Australia is like fuck time zones.
And she's putting that entire thing, she put that whole thing together. I mean, that's so, I'm really interested to catch that.
She's an animal. She is
really
definitely
is.
someone to look up to in this field.
Well, and Joe too, he was doing the daily briefs for the extradition hearing. He
was doing daily video like briefings, and then he was also writing articles every day. I mean, yeah, crazy. These people are in go mode all the time, and I am in awe because I can't handle it.
And incredibly generous, with their time and everything. But I mean, that's because of how important it is. It's just, it's just so, I do think people are, I know it's never as fast as we want to see, but I mean, I do think more and more people are waking up to this. And even a lot of people that maybe aren't going to completely flip over to, everything have had enough. They don't can see now how arbitrary this is. So he doesn't, sending him back to the prison. I think some of this stuff is going to, hopefully come back to bite him in the butt with public.
I really hope some of this starts to backfire soon. And I think you're right. Like, and maybe it's like wishful thinking or whatever, but like I have seen an increase in support. I've seen people who were kind of supportive before being more active and getting more involved. And I mean, I've gone through my own transition of, becoming more heavily involved, like the further it goes. So yeah, I mean, I do think that the support level is growing. I just hope it happens. And I hate to like be Debbie Downer as usual, but it may already be too late, but it would be cool if we could, get like mass public pressure before it's too late, Well,
on our website, I put up last night, it might still need proofread, so if there's grammatical errors, let me know. But I did put up the information about the Clovers for Assange events and for the Fuck Censorship events that we're doing in DC. In there is the BYOP, Be Your Own Protest. If you cannot make it to DC, or if you would rather just have a protest in your own community, please do that. And please start looking at places, inviting friends and people that you know. We will help you. We will promote those events. Misty's done an absolutely amazing job playing matchmaker, connecting people in different cities, which is Herculean work. Like, that is incredible to be able to keep up on all that.
I'm not doing a very good job.
Hey, anything worth doing is worth doing poorly.
Right.
So I would love to see tons of events come up. We have Mark Lubbers working on an actual Clovers for Assange website for us to host and post all of those secondary and sister events going on all over the country. Nice. So I'm pumped, but we are having some of our own censorship problems. It's something I've contacted GoFundMe support about it.
Oh, yeah. No, we can figure this out. It's just been a bad week for me. Yeah, we'll figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to update the the people about it, just because it's an ongoing situation. They have not yet released the funds for our protest. They're denying the bank account that we've used 3 other times, one of which is still active on the protests from January. So please continue to share it. Please continue to donate if at all possible. But at this moment, we're still working on getting a solution. I was literally emailing support while we were on with Kathy, because they replied back to me in the middle of the show. So hopefully, we will get that money soon. If not, we have some creative workarounds, but it's just a matter of hopefully we don't have to do that.
Yeah, GoFundMe is ridiculous, you guys. Like all of these things are all of these, you know, this is, and it kind of, we can see it happening again with Gray Zone, and with the way that Patreon is fucking over Ryan Christian. You know, that's one of the first things they did to WikiLeaks was ban them from like financial and fundraising websites and apps and things like that. And that's what they do, and that's why they're demonetizing independent channels. They're trying to get these people to quit. Like if they just, it's kind of like sanctions, sort of. You know what I mean? Like if you want to think about it in that way, it's economic sanctions against independent media, hoping that they can just push you out, you know, just because you can't afford to do the work anymore. Because it is a time-consuming thing, and so I think that's, you know, it's no surprise if anybody's ever read Economic Hitman. You know, they use economic kind of warfare against all their opponents. You know, it's just like their MO. So yeah, we're gonna have to figure out workarounds to that moving forward, I think, because I think that's only going to get worse. So I don't know, like that's another whole other can of worms, because it really feels like that's kind of the direction they're headed in right now. Just seeing what Patreon's done and what GoFundMe's doing to us, and you know, it
To
feels like
Burnus, they took down his.
Yeah, I mean, Combo
GoFundMe.
Couch, Frank Analysis, Nico, they all got demonetized on YouTube. I don't think any of them have been remonetized. So and that's
great though, is like with Ryan, you know, I mean, I appreciate, you know, because of course he's going to share everything about it, which is awesome, because every single video he does is so well linked, and you know, and that they won't even take down the content or tell him which content, just that we have issues with your content, you need to, you know, remove it. So he needs to self-censor himself in order to remove it. And that's, but I think too, that that's a critical time that we're in right now, because there are a lot of people who are being censored on issues that have even nothing to do with Julian Assange, but just other things that maybe aren't aware that, like, you know, because that's also been people, you know, it's hidden in this article, or that it's not like bam, like how people expect.
Well, that's what I've been trying to. I've been using Medicare for All recently, because it feels like that's something that everybody can almost kind of agree on. But I want people to think about it. What is one of the major reasons why we don't have Medicare for All in this country? And that is propaganda. I mean, there's the whistleblower. I think his name's like Wendell Pierce or something. But he used to work for kind of like the PR wing of these pharmaceutical and insurance companies. And he was in charge of like coming up with propaganda to misinform Americans about what Medicare for All is and how it works and what the benefits are and what it will cost and the fact that it saves money. And it went on for a very long time. And so that is one of the reasons why we don't have Medicare. It's a huge part of the reason why we don't have Medicare for All in this country. And it's only going to get worse as they start taking away our alternative sources of sharing information. You know, we're not going to be able to combat that at all. And it's already a struggle to do it now, because they have all of the money and all of the power and all of the access to the airwaves and all of the sponsors and you know what I'm saying? All the donors. And it's already like David versus Goliath. And now they're shutting down all of our our alternative sources of information. That's going to make it even more difficult. So that I've been trying to use Medicare for All to get people to see like how this really does affect everything else, because it does. It really does. Like if you want to be able to fight for anything, you have to be able to disperse information, have conversations, combat
really
propaganda.
discuss a variety of topics.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I want to get more groups involved in the Clovers events, like different,
Yeah.
like how we have the fuck censorship. Like I would love to get some type of like abolish ICE group or environmental group or like the Answer Coalition involved, and
Or healthcare or anti-war or
because the yeah, absolutely, because the way the first day's set up is we're doing marches to individual places, right? So we can add another stop or another two stops for another group. Like if someone wants to pick up at the end of the fuck censorship event for municipal broadband or for the pipeline fights that are across the country and take that to a significant location for them. Because I was talking about this on another show the other day. Free speech isn't what we're doing to defend free speech and defend Julian isn't just about Julian. It's about elevating all of the other voices that have been left behind that aren't getting to use their free speech because of the censorship. So that's something that I really look forward to trying to do. It's something we've never been able to do too well outside of January's events with Force the Vote, but we'll see what happens. It never hurts to try.
Yeah, I think that that's a great idea, and I think that that's and the more that we can make that connection for people, that really all of these things are so unbelievably intertwined. That foreign policy and being anti-war directly affects healthcare and education, and I mean it really is like. It's like, that meme with the guy with all the strings in the background and, he's like, yeah, I'm going to explain all like that crazy guy who's trying to make all the connections. It really is like that, though. Everything is connected. All of these issues are connected. And just for me, the whole press freedom and free speech just kind of is the most important because you can't fight for anything else unless you have the ability to speak about it.
Well, and you won't even know what to fight for. That's my big thing is I'm like,
because you won't have information.
Full of lies. You could be fighting for something that's absolutely against your own interests.
Yes. And that happens all the time.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. People are so propagandized, they will actively fight against themselves. And that like regularly.
No, sorry. No, I was just going to say one thing to Andrew's point about that too, about the be your own protest as well. That's how
I love that.
That's how Denver started. We started with just me, honestly, and I wrote a thing where I'm like, well, one person, is that bad for the movement if it's a one person protest? I mean, I know that's embarrassing, but I just share it because it's true. And, but that ended up not being the case. I put up a meetup, and I had, honestly, there's people that came that day that are still in our group and in our committee. And that's so cool to see that. I mean, because it's been a long time and it's hard because it has really been ugh.
Yeah.
And we've had some things like this, and now the event. But anyway, I was just going to say that. And anybody ever wants to send us tweets or, anybody here on the show too, that's one other friend and passing out flyers. That's that's a start. That's something a lot of people that we ran into, they just, really the big jerks, that can happen, but it's most people don't even know what's going on.
Yeah, 100%. And that's what like the whole matchmaker thing was supposed to help with, because I get it. It's really intimidating to get, especially if you've never done a whole lot of activism or protesting or whatever. That's really intimidating to what do I do? Where do I go? Do I have to have a permit? Do I need to what, what I mean? There's a lot to consider. Am I going to get arrested? You know what I mean? There are things that you have to think about. And if that can be really intimidating, and then to do it by yourself, that's scary as shit. You know what I'm saying? So, I think that it's hard to find people organically because Assange isn't something that's a widely talked about issue. But if you can get online and we can, start, hey, I live in Tacoma, and then we can all tweet that out and be like, hey, this person's in Tacoma. Is anybody else in Tacoma that's an Assange supporter? Make sure you guys follow each other, start a DM group, whatever. So that way, if you guys do eventually want to organize some kind of events or, get more active in some way, or, start your own letter writing campaign or, papering campaign or whatever it is. I think that's, that just being able to have one or two people, so you're not you versus the world, because that's really what it can feel like.
Well, when Action for Assange first started, we weren't even a thing. It was me going around putting up posters, and I got contacted by the wonderful Mark Levers. And he was like, hey, do you want to come on Anonymous Bites Back? I see you doing all this work putting the posters up. That's really cool. I was like, yeah, sure, why not? I literally never done an interview in my whole life, right? And well, I may have done like one, but I had been like a behind the scenes person. And I go on and he's like, oh, by the way, there's this person that goes to Kent State that's going to be joining you. She has been doing a lot of reporting on Assange. And I was like, okay, cool. And that's how I met Taylor. And we literally just started all of this together. We were like, hey, what the hell can we do? We need way more people on the ground active. And once you start acting personally, like for me, it was going out and just putting up posters. You see how far free speech has been taken from us.
Yes.
And that's why I've always encouraged everyone to go out and just start acting now. Like, don't wait for something. Just go put up a poster about what you care about. Because what you'll realize very quickly, and you generally don't get cited the first time, but usually that poster has to be taken to court. Usually that simple no more torture sign is illegal. And people don't think about it. People don't realize that, right? That you can't walk down the street and put on a telephone pole, no more torture, but you can walk down the street and put on a telephone pole that you have a garage sale.
Yeah.
But the laws in your city ban advertising, but the garage sale's not advertising, but the poster that says no more torture is. And that was a situation I encountered directly, like month one of starting to do on the ground activism for Assange by myself, just throwing posters up. And that's part of what still motivates me, is the fact that like free speech has been taken away at the highest levels and at the lowest levels.
But I think it's such an abstract concept. And I think that's why we have so much trouble getting people to care about it, because it's not in your face. Do you know what I mean? It's been like this slow walk where it's been like chipped away little by little. I've said it's been happening for decades, but really over the past 10 or 15 years, it's like gotten ramped up. Obama was unbelievably awful, and Trump just kind of took that and ran with it. And Joe Biden is going to be worse. So yeah, I mean, it's been like this kind of slow, and so it's not, I don't think people recognize how dire the situation is and how, it really is like this. I mean, I say it's very dramatic, but it's like a turning point. It's like one of those like momentous things in human history where, we're going to go kind of one or two ways here. And it's just really scary to think that the First Amendment is genuinely being like,
we're in the turn, we're there.
That's the part with the whole Q narrative that pisses me off, right? The whole idea of like their slogan from fucking September 2017 was "Where we go one, we go all," right? And we've been standing here screaming, "We are all Assange" this whole fucking time, and that entire community's just gone, right?
Yeah.
Like everyone that got tricked into believing that we have to take care of each other and make sure that none of us go down, right, has just been shattered because it was an intelligence operation. And they took all of that energy, like we had been saying for 4 years almost, and just fucking smashed it all on the ground. Just like the Bernie Sanders movement, just like Ocasio-Cortez, just like Barack Obama, just like the labor organizing in the 80s when
just
the Democrats
like the Women's
sold out.
March and the resistance movement and Sunrise Movement and DSA. And yes, this is what always happens. This is, I mean, another big thing that what we're up against, because all of our movements, for the people, will be attacked. They will be co-opted. Anytime that there's any sign that they're making a difference or that they're making headway, or that, people are starting to talk a certain way about a certain subject, they will do everything they can to destroy that movement. And that's, people like say it's like a left-right thing. Well, they only attack leftist movements. That's not, I mean, I guess kind of, but it's just people's movements. Whatever it is that benefits the people, that's what they will go after. And it's not like we don't have historical reference for this. You know what I'm saying? They've done it over and over and over again, repeatedly, constantly throughout history. So, I mean, yeah, those are things that we have to be concerned about for sure. But
and there's some like good things too, you know what I mean? Like through when you see that, it is kind of the deal. Like power has to be fought at every generation, and people
Yeah.
have been doing that, but not as many as should have been, obviously, or been, you know what I mean, aware of it. So we've got a big, like Assange had said that we're like how did he say it? Like a liner, like bumping up against an iceberg, just trying to give people some time. And but to Andrew's point, I think that you've seen, like, from his little, like, starting, like, hanging the signs. I mean, look at Steve and I were actually, which missed Steve on the show today, but we were talking about that. Look at all the incredible people that have come on the Free Assange Vigil, through this whole time, and where it's like one person going and hanging signs. Andrew, do you know what I mean? Then you meet Taylor, you meet Steve, and then there's, the whole thing. And then I don't know. I think too that that's been a lesson for me, seeing it is a lot of this, but I of course, I'm just hopeful there's a breakthrough, because we have to have free press, like you said.
Yeah,
So.
no, yeah. And I think that that's like the only thing that keeps me going, is like, there's that hope that we will have that breakthrough, because, I am really like negative and cynical, but at the same time, if I didn't think that there was some like hope to be had, I just wouldn't do it. I wouldn't put myself through it. You know what I mean? I think we all feel that way. But and you're right. Like, it's fun to see like how just like one dude hanging up some flyers turned into, what are we in, like week 86 or 86 something?
Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy. I mean, it's week 86 of this show, and it was 3 times a week, it was 2 times a week, but that's a shit ton of shows. And we've had amazing guests on, and we've been able to cover a lot of really critical aspects of the case that nobody else is talking about. We've been able to do really deep dives into, a lot of the stuff and a lot of the leaks. And, I think that that's, I don't mean to like pat ourselves on the back too much, but that's, I mean, I'm like really proud of us that that's something that we've all been doing and working on. And, you're right. It is like a slog. It feels like all of the time. You never feel like you're getting anywhere. Do you know what I mean? That's just how, I mean, again, I'm negative. So I never feel like I'm getting anywhere. I never feel like we're doing anything that's making any difference. And I'm like constantly hard on myself, and I'm not doing enough, or I didn't do the right thing or whatever. But yeah, it's like when you take a step back and you look at, like Andrew just telling that story, it started with him like hanging some posters. You're like, yeah, okay, we have done some stuff. Like we did do some stuff, So yeah, I'm glad that he just told that story, like our little origin story, because yeah, that's a good reminder that, when you're in it, it feels like you're not doing anything. It feels like you're not getting anywhere. But then if you take a step back, yeah, fuck yeah, we've done some good stuff. You know what I mean?
What you were saying about having the community there, we have we can get people together and whatnot. Cause I know for us in Denver, that was I was new to all of this stuff. So making friends early on with Action for Assange, I went on the vigil, which was nerve wracking, but all of you guys were always so, Andrew and Taylor and Steve were always so supportive. I mean, both Taylor and Steve have been out to Denver for an event, and I just think that helps. That solidarity is a big deal,
Yeah.
Because the big secret for what we're trying to do, really, the Clovers for Assange events a year ago started the clover leaf as a way to identify each other, right? So if you saw someone that had that, you're like, oh, cool, they're an Assange supporter. Our hope is to get people together in the real world, so that way next month, or not next month, but the month after, right, April 11th, we can have way bigger events, right? Because that's the plan, is to keep going and building forward. So if we can get 10 little events, 5 little events around the country, we can come to those places and do live teach-ins, right? We can help build those local Assange supporting groups. And then those groups can go into their communities and help build actual local level things and help with those local issues to continue spreading the message about what's going on.
Yeah. And I think that that's one of the most crucial steps that we're going to have to take, because, we are being silenced, online and in the news media. They don't cover Assange. They don't talk about Assange. And like we've said repeatedly, that's only going to get worse. So we really are going to have to start making local connections and talking to people, face to face more, and which is hard right now because of COVID. And there's, you know, everywhere's like every state is different. I mean, really every city is different. Like they've all got their own, you know, curfews or whatever it is. And so it's really hard to like figure out how and when and where to schedule those kinds of things right now. But as we build those communities, you know, we can lay the groundwork for it now, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So that when it is easier for us to hold those kinds of events, we already have sort of like base level support that we can use to kind of build off of. So yeah, I think that that's, you know, definitely something that we're going to have to really start, you know, focusing on moving forward for sure.
Well, and even too, oh, sorry, go ahead, Andrew.
Oh, no, go ahead. I just have a question. You can.
No, I was just going to say that even too, you know, like with, because one of the things Denver had thought about even before with doing like an online panel event is just like, well, look, there's our show, there's like so many things out there and everything like that. So it was like, well, you can do that. But I do still think there's something to, even with these restrictions, depending on where you are or what people's feelings are that might only want to go online, you know, there are ways to turn that into a local event, you know, and like try to, or to, you know, share some of the events that have already been done and go to a, you know, a university or something, try to, you know, see about an audience that would show up, and then, you know, anybody here or through the Assange community, because it really is just such an incredible community of people who understand how important this is. You know, they will help you out. That's how our panel came about. You know, it's wonderful. I mean, we're so lucky to have these speakers. They do a great job for the Denver community that we have there. And so I was just going to say, you know, that's something to think about too. We can make some online things local as well. And I love the Clovers for Assange idea, like everybody giving Julian his luck. That was such a great idea.
Yeah, I think Kluber started that, didn't he? Like that was it really started as just like a hashtag, Clovers for Assange, to give him, you know, all of our luck or whatever. And I think it was about a year ago when it started. So yeah, just being able to take that and kind of hijack St. Patrick's Day and use it as a way to draw attention is, you know, awesome. But yeah, and then being able to use the Clover as you know, like a way to, oh, okay, that person supports Assange, or what, like Andrew was saying earlier, that helps kind of make connections and, you know, in the online space while we still have it. So yeah, I'm excited to turn that into like a 3D event and, you know, see how that goes. And I'm really excited that we're going to be focusing on, you know, Fox and CNN and the media, because they're a problem.
So Misty, I have a question, right?
Okay. Hopefully I have an answer.
So this is something, it may even be better for an off-camera question, but I'll ask it just because we're here. I've had a couple different political candidates from different parts of the country reach out to me asking for like help, I guess, just because I've worked on campaigns and stuff before. And like, do you think it's worth like for like just an individual activist? Like I have all the stuff that I'm involved in, but for like individual people to still try to get involved with local campaigns? Like I'm not talking about like presidential or even like Senate, but just like person.
I think that I think most people who watch the show or know me on Twitter or whatever know that I do not think the electoral politics is the answer. But when I say that, I do mean that on like a federal level. I do think that there's possibilities, and it really depends on your local area, because some of them are corrupted beyond belief, and it's, you know, just like Democratic Party Junior bullshit, or Republican Party Junior bullshit. But if you have like a more open sort of local political structure, I think it is, you know, you can, especially if you have like ballot measures you can work on or whatever. Would I like volunteer my time for a candidate? No, absolutely not. But if that candidate wanted to lend their voice to Julian Assange, would I help them with that? Of course. But I'm not like Steve Cox. Love the guy. He's great on Twitter. I've had him on my show. I donated to him because he is running independent. I said I would never donate to anybody who is running in either major party ever again, and I will hold to that. But I did donate to him just because, you know, he's a friend. I like his policies and but that's just not the thing that I'm into. I wouldn't volunteer for his campaign. I wouldn't, you know what I mean? Like, that's just not my thing. But yeah, I think that if you can get involved locally, if you think that there's kind of some space for you to make, you know, some change in your own community, whether it be, because there are times where you could get like a community garden started. or, you know, something like that, like some kind of a mutual aid type program, which we are going to need moving forward. And if you're on like the local zoning committee or whatever, you might be able to make some of those things easier. But yeah, I think that's it just depends on kind of your area or whatever, like where you live and how all of that kind of works out. Like in my hood, it's not super corrupted. It is very partisan. It's very like line in the sand, Democrats, Republicans. There is no like independent force at all. There's no, so you would have to kind of take over your local party, which is obviously going to be easier at a local level anyways. I just don't know that I would spend my time on it, but that's just me. I mean,
we should have like a timeline test. I mean, even for us as well, or anybody, depending on which like major party you're for, you know, just through like, okay, just, you know what I mean? Because like from what Democrats used to be about to like now, or even same as Republicans, you know what I mean? It's like things have changed like this, like so much. It's just, it's kind of funny. Like, well, did you know you would have been a Republican in, you know, 19 blah, 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 or did you know you would have been a Democrat? And I mean, I don't know. It's just,
well, there's always like this, it seems like this constant shift. It's like it's kind of like the ratchet effect. But it's really like they just kind of, because it really is just one party that looks like two that works like together, like they work off of each other, I think is more appropriate. So, and I think that they just end up like naturally over time, when they do that, they just kind of shift to the other side, which is really interesting to watch. And you're right, historically, that's like so true. It's 100% true. But that's very true for this. Like I've said this before. If you would have told me 5 years ago that Sarah Palin would speak out in defense of Julian Assange before Bernie Sanders, I would have thought you were fucking nuts. You know what I mean? Like I would have thought you were nuts. There's no way Sarah Palin's going to come to Julian Assange's defense before Bernie Sanders. Would I have been like super for sure that Bernie Sanders would even speak out? No, but I would have expected him to do it before Sarah Palin.
You know what? I'm glad that you said that. That made me think of something when Kathy was talking about our event. That article that she quoted from, that was actually from Assange Defense had done that. And to Misty's point, one of the things I was thinking, you know, these people, not like Bernie Sanders, AOC, a lot of these people, and anybody, any representative not coming out for Assange, you know, now there is this is a mainstream issue now. You know what I mean? You have all of the major like free press, human rights orgs. So what are we talking about here now? So we really have a lot of fuel, I think, for this like local type of pressure on our representatives and even, you know, Biden and everything like that.
Yeah, I don't think we have much hope with Biden. Unless we can get mass public pressure, I don't think, because he's really not in control of anything.
Yeah, I think they all have to be put into a corner.
Yes.
That's what I've learned about politics. That's how you get it.
Yeah. Yep. Well, and I honestly have very, 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 very little hope for AOC, Bernie Sanders. They're cheering on censorship. They're advocating for more censorship. AOC sent out a mass email to her huge ass email list, asking her supporters to get online and mass target and report tweets that were unfavorable to her, basically. That's crazy that an elected official is using their email list for that kind of a thing like that.
And that's even fucking legal.
Right.
And that a fucking elected official can even say, hey, go report these, because that's Stalinism. Like, go tell on your fucking neighbor because they don't like me, your fucking born hero.
And nobody talks about the fact that she did that, really. Like, that's not a thing that people are troubled by. To me, that was fucking crazy that she sent out this email telling her. I mean, if you go back and you read the email, it's, you know, she couches it kind of as, you know, there's disinformation being shared online about me. You know, please go target those accounts and mass report them. You know, because it's disinformation. But she doesn't get to decide what's disinformation. She doesn't get to decide whether or not that person has the right to their opinion on the issue or the freedom to share their opinion on the issue. Even if they're wrong, they have the right to talk about it, you know, in a public space, period. Like you should be able to just, if you have an opinion, you should be able to share it without fear of, retaliation from one of the most powerful politicians in the country, and all of her stands. The fact that she was able to do that and nobody cared, like I've not heard anybody really bring that up. When it first happened, there was some like rumblings about it, but to me, that was fucking nuts. I can't believe that that's like a thing that happened. It's crazy.
Well, Kendra, you talked a bit about cornering politicians, right? When we were talking about Bernie Sanders. And quite frankly, we cornered Donald Trump, right? Like we backed him into a corner on the Assange issue. As a group, we were able to attend dozens of his events towards the end of, well, maybe a dozen of his events towards the end of his campaign run, right? I personally went to probably about 5 of them before December even, like when the election was still going on in November and September. October. But if you believe the fairy tale, right? If you believe the smoke and mirrors show, Mitch McConnell told Donald Trump that if you pardon Julian Assange, that we're going to convict you in the Senate, right? While his entire base was screaming, pardon Julian Assange, right? So we didn't get what we wanted out of that situation, right? Donald Trump didn't pardon Assange, but what it did do is it punched a hole right into everyone's belief system, because everyone that was demanding that, like the leadership, right, that was demanding that, realized what happened, realized that they had been sold out, and the people underneath them that were screaming that realized it too. So Donald Trump got backed into a corner, and what he did is he lost in 2024 already, because he no longer has his support base and all of those people. So the whole Senate conviction thing was just a pony show, because we knew that he wasn't going to get convicted because he didn't pardon Julian, right? That was according to their story, right? But when he goes to run again in 2024, he's going to look like Bernie Sanders in 2020. He's going to look like this feeble old man that can't get anyone around him to even care about what he's saying, because they know that he's sold out.
Yeah, you're probably right. But I still think that the Democrats will find a way to lose to him if he runs, because that's what they do. But yeah, you're right. He did like really destroy his support base with that. I mean, I think that they were all starting to kind of peel off. I think that a lot of things became more clear like the longer he was president to some of them. So I think that some of his support, like they all have like their hardcore bases that it doesn't matter what they do. It's like a God complex, and Donald Trump is God, and he can, you know what I mean? Like Bernie Sanders has his own, he's a deity of some kind, and, they all do, K-Hive, whatever. So yeah, I think that he will always have those like loyal supporters, but I think a lot of people that supported him, because he said he was going to end some wars, or because, he was going to do something about healthcare, that he was going to drain the swamp, or what. I think that as he was president, people started to shed off because it was abundantly clear that this dude was full of shit.
Well, I think that's why they passed it to Biden, right? Because I think that's why they let Joe Biden, like he was the selected president.
Yeah.
Is because Trump wasn't able to continue that propaganda, right? Because you had President Obama, who is fucking terrible, right? But at least he was able to sell it. Yes. Like at least he was able to sell it to the second term.
Donald Trump has no talent for subtlety. He does not know when to shut the fuck up. He says things he's not supposed to, and he says them loudly and often. He's kind of an idiot and a loudmouth, and he's unpredictable. And I think that, they knew that they could control him, just based on the fact that he does have legal issues, and there's stuff that they can use against him to keep him under control. Chuck Schumer says it. They have 6 ways a Sunday to come back at you, and they will. And when you're Donald Trump and you have, skeletons upon like colossal mountains of skeletons in your closet, they have shit they can use against you to keep you, in line. But he just didn't know when to shut up, and he was unpredictable. And they need somebody who, and Joe Biden's not much better, because he often says really dumb things too. But because of COVID and a bunch of other things, I think they're going to just mostly keep him hidden. If you've noticed, he hasn't really done a lot of interviews or press conferences. He's done the one town hall. You know, Texas was freezing. He didn't really talk about it much. He's not giving like public addresses about all of the intense things that are happening right now, like you would maybe expect a president to do. So I think they're just mostly going to keep him hidden away, and, you know, roll him out for some photo ops every now and again, like they did the other day with their moment of silence. And that'll be it. That'll be his presidency. So yeah, I think that you're right. I think that Joe Biden is just like an easier puppet to manage. And, you know, Trump just pissed them off and was just too unpredictable for them. Like they don't like that, I don't think, you know? Which I know they sounds very conspiratorial, but I don't think anybody can deny the fact that there's like, whatever you want to call it, deep state, the shadow government, the permanent state, whatever you want to call it. The people,
there's just so many things though, for me. I mean, to be frank, like, and I usually don't chat, there's just too many things that seem to really fit in place with all of these narratives, you know, that like, I mean, do you know what I mean? Even with
no, I 100% know what you mean. If you like try connecting some of that stuff, people call you crazy.
Steady policy through.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Like even
go ahead.
Like
Andrew.
completely off topic. Like even the GameStop shit. Like for as crazy as it is, like if you even like peel the surface back on that, you're like, what the fuck is going on?
Right. Yeah.
Really strange.
Yeah, because there's a company that literally downloaded all of the Department of Justice's information, Stellar Win, that got tons of money from the GameStop short. Like they made tons of money from that and the people involved in it. So it's just like, even that, you're like, this is weird as fuck.
Yeah. Well, and to me, I get like how all of like what we're saying might sound conspiratorial, but when you look at the fact that we just think about the things that we know for sure our government has done and said and the propaganda they've used, that's just what you know. You know what I mean? Like the Gulf of Tonkin and incubator babies and Russiagate and I mean, I could go on and on and on. Operation Mockingbird, MK Ultra, like there's a shit ton of stuff that we know that they do to manipulate people and control the narrative and propagandize people. Was it the director of the CIA that was like, yeah, we lie, we steal, whatever he said. And then
Pompeo's.
And then there was the other guy who said, you know, we'll know our job is done when everything that the American public believes is a lie.
William Perry.
Yeah, that's what they do. I mean, that's not conspiratorial. That's not like overly dramatic. These people know what they're doing. They've been doing it for a very long time, and they have a lot to lose. You know what I mean? So, whatever, is it William Bloom or something? Whatever you think your government, this is paraphrasing, whatever you think your government is doing, it's, you know, 1,000 times worse than you could ever even dream of. It's crazy what they are capable of. And I think way too many people underestimate them. I know that sounds like really, you know, whatever. I just don't know what other word to use for it, but you know, it's kind of nuts that there's this weird cabal of people controlling everything, you know.
And the last time that we got any actual bulk, huge information about war crimes was the stuff that Julian's on trial for right now. Over 10 years ago was the last time we had a bulk release of U.S. war crimes. And any accountability.
They know what kind of toothpaste you buy, Andrew. They know what, you know, what time you wake up and what route you take to work every day. But we don't, they're committing war crimes and torture and rape and theft on a grand scale. They're destroying entire countries and causing global chaos and, you know, immigration issues and, you know, refugee issues and destroying the planet, really. I mean, climate change and all of that. Like, they're psychopaths. They're that's where we're at. That's what we're up against. That's like terrifying because it's a lot, but that's where we are.
Well, and WikiLeaks really is that's the organization that was able to do something like big enough to where they could actually have some sort of honestly, because that's one of the things I think we're up against is we have, people who are able to, they want to get something to the entire world. Sure, we'll just release the thing to AP. There you go. Everybody reporting on the same thing. And I really think that that's difficult for local grassroots, especially when the society is arranged in such a mass way to fight against. And I think that was like, people were saying a lot of the things already that WikiLeaks had released, like just on the basis of the different laws that were being passed, like, presidents just being able to go to war whenever the hell they want. And, things like that. And it's funny because it's like the longer been active in this, the more I'm just like, gosh, it was such a big thing that they did, and so valuable for us, and still to have all of that information. I mean, I think we need to free Assange, and we need more leaks, right?
We need more WikiLeaks. I've said that before because people will try to make it out like I'm like a lot of like Hillary supporters will try to say, oh, well, you like Julian because he helped Trump. And I've never been a Trump supporter. I don't think anybody's unclear about that. But yeah, I want like 1,000 WikiLeaks around the globe, exposing everybody. People in power should be terrified to do anything wrong. Do you know what I mean? Like that should be the level of scrutiny that they are under. They should be terrified to step 1 inch out of line. And, like if we're going to have, go ahead, Andrew.
WikiLeaks is the model I think that all international institutions should be based off of. Because I don't think personally, I don't believe in international authority. Like I don't think anyone should have the power to say anything that the whole world should do. But I think everyone should have the power to expose what they're doing so people in those communities can take appropriate action for what they seem and deem fit. So like I would love to see a specifically environmental WikiLeaks and a specifically foreign policy WikiLeaks and a specifically, I don't know, police brutality in New York City.
Corporate corruption.
At local levels, at high levels, because that's what we need. We need factual information and we need people willing to do what it takes to correct what was exposed for whatever that means to you.
Unless you're comfortable with letting complete psychopaths have total control. Because I'm not like that's not okay with me. I would no. These people are horrible human beings. I mean, these are the kind of people who start wars, just so that they can justify paying out defense contractors and stealing oil, or or like just gaining geopolitical control over a certain region. I don't want those people to have that much power and control. I want them to be, if they're going to exist, if we're going to have like any kind of a power structure, which is a whole other debate entirely, but if there is going to be some sort of like hierarchy of power, the people who have power should be just completely transparent. You should have a modicum of like some individual privacy. Like I don't need to know, how many bowel movements you have a day or what your gynecologist said, or, you know what I'm saying? But you should be under heavy scrutiny all the time. And every move you make in your job, in your position of power, should be looked at and examined and exposed, and like that. I don't think that's unreasonable. These people have a tremendous amount of power.
Well, and I could see quite frankly, I could see the argument being made against private business, but as far as our elected officials go, there's no such thing as like a representative of government in a representative government of the citizen, not being able to know things about like national security, what I mean? Public interest things about war crimes, by the way, that it's from the video ordered. So people are being, what I mean, ordered and like trained in such a way. That's definitely public interest. People care about that. Their lives are
well, and it's,
and other people's.
Yeah, I'm not okay with my government using the military, funded in part by my tax dollars, to, rape and murder people. That's disgusting. I have no. And I want to know if that's happening, and those people should be held accountable. But that's what I'm talking about. Like the people that have all this control are like toddlers with like god complexes
and space weapons.
Yeah, and space, and like they have like the largest terrorist organization on planet Earth at their disposal, and which is the U.S. military. And you know, they can wield it however they see fit, and they think that a way to, and it's not even that it's a way to solve problems, because they're not trying to solve any problems. It's really just consumption and greed, like just however they can continue to funnel more money to themselves, which is sick in a whole other way. But like, I don't know. I don't know. They just have too much power, no accountability. There's no transparency. But if you think that you can like solve problems or fix things just by like blowing people up, you probably shouldn't be in charge. You know, like that's not just, if you think about it as like a grown ass adult, does that, would you tell your kids like, hey, that kid made you mad, well, go, hit him over the head with a shovel or whatever? No, we teach our kids like, you shouldn't hit people and use your words. And then our elected officials choose to solve their, problems by blowing people up in third world countries. And
yeah,
it's mind-boggling,
I mean, and fascism always has a PR campaign.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's like, hey, we're here, we're the fascists, like, come support us. I mean, that's never how history seems to work. It's just always that, authoritarian, and by nature
it's like this creeping,
mm-hmm.
It sucks because it's very I don't know. It's just really hard to fight back against. And it sucks even more because it's not like we haven't been through this before, and humans never learn, like we know where this we know where this is headed. We know, and we're still just like zombie walking into our own demise.
But too, like, even one thing too, like to Andrew's point, that whole group of, maybe not everybody, but there's a big group there that was like, wait a minute, guess there wasn't, 3D chess going on, guess, like, I mean, whether you agree with the issues or not, anybody who, what I mean, was like, well, maybe some of that was Trump's fault or not, or maybe he just couldn't get done what they wanted to get done. I mean, who knows? But that should, I was just had the thought, Andrew, while you were talking about all the different WikiLeaks, where it's just like, it is easy to feel beaten down, but I'm like, that's like, if we do have places like that for people to go to, and people are able to even have that little bit of privacy to share that, we don't need the mainstream media. Everybody could still have that information. They just have to go to it. They're not going to find it. And I do think that's why I think it's so critical with the extra, like the censorship and everything like that. I love that what Assange had said, that's like, kind of cause for celebration, because that means that there's, that's weird. So like with the Clovers, I think that was so great to see, Andrew, that like the fuck the censorship and the Clovers for Assange coming together. These like, that's great. I was like, let's get another group out in DC. Come on, guys.
You guys, if in the chat, if you know of any groups in the DC area or anywhere, really, if they're willing to travel, that want to join up and like have a corresponding event, seriously, get a hold of us. Like it's not like we don't all agree on many of these things. And so if we join together, our smaller groups then become a much bigger group. And that's how it's going to happen. If it's going to happen, we're going to have to start joining together and banding together on the things that we agree on, and working together and supporting each other's causes, and trying to bring everybody in at the same time, because then, instead of our 50 or 60 people, it's now 600. And then at the next one, it's 6,000. And, like that's how we have to go about this. We really have to start trying to join forces with, things that, different groups that kind of understand and that kind of fit into, does that make sense? Like, I think that's just
the way that I think about it, right? Because I'm a fucking nerd, right? I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan. So when Pasta calls me a hobbit, it like warms my insides a little bit, because that's like setting out. That's what I felt like.
Hobbit? I don't think I've ever heard him say that.
Yeah, before we met in person, he thought I was like 5'2", right? So,
That's funny.
but the way I look at it is like when when any individual sets out to do activism, the goal should be to unite all of the different kingdoms of man, right? Like in Lord of the Rings, like Frodo went out and got the dwarves and the elves and the three different kinds of humans and like all that shit. Like that's the way we should try to look at organizing for any issue. Like we have to go and collect these groups and put our swords together and say, hey, this is the evil that's going to kill us. Like we all have our heritage and our beliefs, but like we're all going to die to this fucking thing.
That's what I agree with, Andrew. It's like an entirely different thing that we're fighting here. We're fighting it's like the thing, you know, the no more left, right, the no more innocent squabble, you know, or maybe, you know, punch in the face or whatever you want to call it, just the total done, no ideas, state power.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, because that's the thing is it doesn't matter really what cause you support or issue you support. We really do all have a common enemy. It is the ruling class stands in all of our way. And so if you like, it's like a mindset change. If once you recognize that and you realize that, you know, whatever like differences you may have with certain people over certain things, that's fine. We can all have those conversations at some point, but until we deal with the actual like problem that is preventing any change for any of us from happening, I just don't see how we can even entertain those differences, you know, like that doesn't matter. It's just noise at that point, you know, because until we deal with the oligarchy, the ruling class, the completely corrupted system that we find ourselves in, none of our issues are going to get addressed because, you know, that's who stands in our way. All of us, really.
Well, and that made me think of like, and I know everyone has their opinions on it, but when everybody was pressuring Trump to pardon Assange, and Tucker Carlson, you know, I think he came out 2 shows and said something, and you know, but he had a statement on there about 3, about just that truth matters, that counts for something. And that's where I think that's so important, is they're really, especially with the Assange case, trying to just totally dismiss that. They don't want anybody to talk about what was released. They don't want to, you know, all focus on Assange and whether he's a good guy or a bad guy, you know, but like, you know, don't want to talk about any of that. But that's also takes away from us now, right? Because now criticizing the government or talking against the government or something, well, what does that even mean in a democracy? And what if you're saying the truth? You know, the truth has something matters. You know, it matters that a politician ran on something that they're not doing, even whether you agree with them or not, right? Like,
yeah, well, I think Julian has a quote, something like that. Like, you cannot fix anything. And this is like a horrible paraphrase, but you can't fix anything until you're dealing with the truth, until you have the information so that you know exactly what you're dealing with. And then you can make an informed decision based on facts about what you need to do moving forward. And it seems like it should just be common sense, but you know, it seems to not be, which, you know, hopefully we can build up to that some. I think we're doing that some.
We are. Yeah.
Little by little.
Before we wrap up, can I leave a little food for thought on a completely unrelated topic?
No.
Because it's just something that's been bugging me a lot lately.
No. Yeah.
So, Last American Vagabond, fucking amazing. Follow them off of YouTube because they probably won't be here long. On last night's show, Last American Vagabond put out whistleblower footage of forced human experimentation in nursing homes. They're taking dementia patients and forcibly vaccinating them. Literally, you can see this whistleblower footage of people fighting getting this vaccination. Like these elderly patients kicking and screaming to not get vaccinated. And it's horrifying, right? But the question that I ask, that I want to put out there for people to think about, is what's happening inside of the prisons, right? And what's happening inside of the Homeland Security run ICE detention facilities, where you're not going to have someone with the courage to put a camera up because an old lady's being abused. So think about that. In an era of human experimentation through vaccinations, what's happening in all of these dark sites?
Well, Andrew, I don't know if
that's
you saw recently the story out of California where women were being forcibly sterilized. Is that the right
yep,
word? Sterilized? Is that
yep,
right?
sterilized.
That didn't sound right when it came out of my mouth. I'm like, is that the right word?
That's the term.
Yeah. So it's not just forced vaccines.
Mhm.
What's happening, and that's like in an American prison in a blue state.
It goes back to that the thing your government's actually doing is 1,000 times worse than the
Yeah.
worst thing you can imagine.
I mean, that's something that if we heard that like Iran was doing that, that would be grounds for war. Like we would be ready to go to war right now today. Like right now. Somebody send the bomb. Like go. That's happening in the United States in our prisons on a regular basis. And yeah, you're right. It's that one story that just came out of California. If there's that one story, there's lots more.
Yep.
For sure.
But my name's Andrew Smith. You can follow me on Twitter at Andrew Zigman. You can follow us on Twitter at action_4Assange. On Tuesday, we should have Sleepy Josh and Steve back, which I am very excited for. But I would like to thank everybody for tuning in. Please share the link on our website right now for the Clovers and Fuck Censorship event. It's one nice post. And if you can, please help us find other groups to get involved because we would like to, if at all possible, add more stops and make it about celebrating the fact that we need to learn more.
And I am Kendra Christian, and you can follow our Denver group on Twitter at DNVFreeJA. I'm probably going to be getting off of some other social media, so I'm not like going to close that. But thank you so much to my co-hosts. Thank you so much to Kathy Bogan for her help, in streaming our Denver event, and then also this amazing one that she's putting on in Sydney and being our guest today. It's Consortium News has been a longtime friend of Action for Assange. So it was really great to see Kathy today. And thank you to the chat always for your support and help with watching, and then also with help sharing our GoFundMe and the different actions that we do. So please share that, because Clovers for Assange, we want that to grow just like all the other DC protests have, and I suspect that it will. So and of course, please tune in for our Denver event tomorrow. It's at 12 o'clock on our Twitter. You can see the registration link, and then obviously we'll have stuff tomorrow for where to catch that live streamed, which hopefully we'll also have that here on the Action for Assange channel as well. So thanks a lot.
And I am Misty Winston, and I will just have you know that as Andrew started speaking just then, I panicked because I realized Steve's not here, and so that means I'm going to have to close the show, and I'm like, I instantly started oh my God, my palms are a little bit sweaty right now. I don't know why, I'm just a dork. But anyways, so I'm Misty Winston. You can find me on Twitter at SarcasmStarts. I have another show called Facts on the Ground with my friend Jesse Zerwell. We just did our very first live stream. Thank you, Sleepy Josh. Sleepy Josh helped us with it yesterday because Jesse and I are technologically incompetent. Although I did computer stuff yesterday, and Josh said that kind of makes me like an official member of an Anonymous now. So I'm excited about that. But yeah, so Sleepy Josh helped us with our very first live stream yesterday on Facts on the Ground. We had Jesse Jett on, who is an incredible musician. So it's a 3-hour live stream, but it was just so much fun. He played 3 songs from his albums, kind of interspersed in between the interview. And then he premiered a spoken word piece that he just wrote recently about Julian Assange, which is unbelievable. I got goosebumps. I got a little teary-eyed. It's so good. So please go check that out. He is incredible. We're actually going to have him on the Vigil on March 13th, I think, because he's great. And so yeah, definitely check out his work as well. We're still doing the letter writing campaign. We are kind of tackling Joe Biden and Merrick Garland at the moment. If you still want to add a letter to Julian Assange as well, that's always appreciated. Again, there's no way we can be sure he's getting all of his mail. But according to Stella, who I have been in touch with, she personally told me that he is getting some mail. So, I mean, it's worth it to give it a shot. Yeah, definitely share the GoFundMe link if you can. Let everybody know about the DC protests that are happening. If you cannot make it to DC, we get it. Plan an event in your area. If you want help finding other people in your area who are Assange supporters, let me know. Let Andrew know. Let Kendra know. We'll try to help, tweet it out and get eyes on it so that we can find other people in your area for you to kind of, get together with. I always feel like I'm forgetting something. Thank you to everybody in the chat. You're amazing. Thank you to Kathy. Thank you to my co-hosts. I miss Sleepy Josh and Steve, so I'm excited that they'll be back on Tuesday. I know I'm forgetting something, but fuck it.
Good luck to us all.
Yeah, good luck to us all.